Remnants of abandoned aircraft might trigger our fear of flying, but while some of them were indeed the result of unfortunate aerial accidents, others have actually found a new purpose on land. But regardless of how they ended up, these carriers offer us a glimpse into their rich history, filled with famous passengers, unexpected tragedies, and fascinating technology that proved to be ahead of its time. Keep your seatbelts fastened because we're boarding the 8 most amazing abandoned planes. What's up, Factnatics? This is Discovery Amuse serving up your daily dose of the most outrageous, outlandish, and out-of-this-world fun facts. Our number 1 pick is literally pockmarked with bullet holes that serves as a grim reminder of its turbulent past. Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff. Number 8, the King's Jet. Put on your blue suede shoes for this one. If you happen to be in the area of Roswell in New Mexico, why not check out this decrepit private jet that has become a tourist attraction in its own right? Although it definitely has seen better days, this custom 1962 Lockheed Jetstar 1329 was actually once owned by the king himself, Elvis Presley. The velvet upholstery and gold-tone woodwork give visitors first-class access to the high-flying lifestyle of the rock and roll legend. The aircraft had been sitting on a runway in Roswell for more than 30 years until it was finally put up for auction in 2018.
At $45,000 now.
However, it ended up being a tough sell given that the aircraft is missing an engine and the cockpit needs some serious restoration. Still, it could make for snazzy memorabilia for the highest bidder. All it needs is a bigger hunk of love. Just a bigger hunk of love. Stay tuned because our number 1 pick is bound to make you shudder in horror. Number 7, epic aircraft fail. In 1962, famed aircraft designer Robert Bartini proposed an amphibious vehicle that was capable of vertical takeoff and could land on almost any surface, including water. Think a helicopter, an airplane, and a ship all rolled into one. It was indeed an ambitious feat for aviation engineering, but Bartini had been making a name for himself with his innovative aircraft designs. The amphibious design became the basis for the construction of the VVA-14 aircraft in 1972, which was meant to be used to detect enemies and perform rescue operations both on land and at sea. It was a bumpy journey creating the vehicle, to say the least, and the VVA-14 never really lifted off the ground properly. When Bartini passed away in 1974, the makers of the aircraft had a hard time perfecting the ambitious project until further developments were finally stopped in 1976. In 1987, the prototype was turned over to the Soviet Central Air Force Museum, where it's condemned to be grounded forever. Number 6. Trapped in ice. If the Kingdom of Arendelle had its own airline, it might look something like this. When the C-121 Lockheed Constellation plane, also known as Pegasus, took off on October 8, 1970, the pilots already knew they were in for a wild ride. There was a fierce storm over Antarctica at the time, and the lack of fuel didn't make it possible for them to fly back to New Zealand. And when Murphy's Law kicked into high gear, the snow and ice erased all visibility. The harsh winds thrashed the plane 30,000 feet above the ground, and poor Pegasus was sent crashing toward the frozen Antarctic desert. Miraculously, all of the 80 people aboard the Pegasus survived the nosedive mostly unharmed. But the aircraft itself was another story. Even today, the Pegasus can still be seen in its crash site near the McMurdo station, resting under layers of snow. Tourists who brave the harsh weather try to dig parts of the plane in order to get a good photo, and even carve their names onto the aircraft's walls. Number 5. Aircraft restaurant. I bet airplane food has never been this fresh.
I always order a special meal.
At one point, this restaurant gave customers a taste of what it's like to eat on an airplane without having to actually fly. In 2000, a South Korean couple bought this Boeing 747 Airbus, which was the very first commercial aircraft of its kind ever built. During its heyday, the Pan Am aircraft, nicknamed the Trippy after the airline's founder, flew to nearly every continent for decades, but when it was sold in 2000 for $1 million, the Korean couple transformed it into an aviation-themed restaurant in the hopes of giving new life to this once shining symbol of the golden age of air travel. However, the restaurant business didn't exactly soar high, and the owners decided to close up shop in 2005. For the next 5 years, they tried to find a buyer for the dilapidated aircraft to no avail. In 2010, the couple finally bid bon voyage to the Trippy and had it demolished, along with their hopes for a successful business venture that ultimately failed to take flight. Number 4. The Swamp Ghost. The mosquito and crocodile-infested Aga'imbo Swamp in Papua New Guinea is not just home to rich wildlife, but also to an actual Second World War bomber plane. But how the heck did it end up in this place and stay there for almost 70 years? Apparently, this B-17E Flying Fortress aircraft, piloted by Captain Fred Eaton, was intercepted by Japanese forces in February of 1942 after it raided some ships in New Britain. The plane suffered multiple shots, but it ultimately came crashing down onto Papua New Guinea due to low fuel. Fortunately, Captain Eaton and his men survived the plane crash and were ultimately reunited with American troops. The abandoned plane, which was nicknamed the Swamp Ghost, was only discovered in 1972 by the Australian force 30 years after its crash landing, since Captain Eaton couldn't remember the exact location of the crash site. Efforts to recover the bomber started in the 1980s, led by antique plane collector and former World War pilot David Talichet. But it wasn't until 2006 that the salvage operations were completed. In February of 2010, the aircraft was finally transported back to Hawaii and is now on display at the Pacific Aviation Museum for everyone who wants to get a glimpse of what is now dubbed as the Holy Grail of military aviation. Number 3. The aerial workhorse. It might not be easy on the eyes, but the Bristol Type 170 freighter was once the jewel of the skies for being both a freighter and an airliner. It was capable of carrying heavy cargo, even a 3-ton truck. The aircraft was envisioned to be an air ferry that could fly passengers with their cars in short-distance routes. Between 1945 and 1958, it underwent a lot of makeovers to accommodate various passenger and freight forwarding needs. However, on May 30, 1956, an unfortunate incident tarnished the aircraft's reputation. When one of the freighters landed on the Beaver Lodge Lake in Saskatchewan, Canada, the pilot pushed the brake when the left main gear went through the ice. This resulted in the left wing hitting the ground and getting bent. The 3-member crew was rescued, but the plane had to be abandoned due to irreparable damages. Number 2. Sunken drug plane. Just off the shores of Norman's Cay in the Bahamas, you will be welcomed by this unusual islander, a full-size military transport plane once owned by drug kingpin Pablo Escobar. See, in 1978, Escobar's men started taking over Norman's Cay and turned it into one of the Medellin cartel's refueling points while transporting cocaine from Colombia to the U.S. However, in 1980, a Curtiss C-46 Commando, which was part of Escobar's drug-running fleet, landed short of the runway. The precious cargo was recovered, but the smuggling plane was left abandoned in the middle of the sandbank. Today, visitors can snorkel in the area and get a natural high out of swimming with memorabilia of Colombia's dark history. Before we go to our number 1 pick, do us a solid and make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to choose all so you won't miss out on any of our latest life-changing, boredom-busting content, and be sure to turn on notifications in your app settings. Number 1. Flying Yacht. In the middle of the Saudi Arabian beach lies an old PBY-5A Catalina aircraft that's been stranded there for more than 40 years, and the story behind it is a tale of one man's dream retirement that quickly turned into a nightmare. In the spring of 1960, a businessman named Thomas Kendall wanted to travel around the world with his family aboard a Catalina he bought from the U.S. Navy, which he converted into a luxury flying yacht. On March 22, 1960, they landed on the Strait of Tiran and anchored the aircraft offshore. The next day, Thomas and his family were attacked by a group of men who fired machine guns and automatic firearms at them. They were able to get back to the aircraft, and Thomas managed to move the plane about 800 meters. But the gunmen kept firing, and the aircraft sustained at least 300 bullet holes, which damaged the fuel tanks. The Kendall family had no choice but to swim back to the shore, where they were captured by a group attached to the Saudi Arabian army. They were eventually set free with the help of the American ambassador, but the pockmarked plane still sits on the beach as a reminder of its owner's worst day ever. So, which among these planes threw you for an aerial loop? Let us know in the comments section below. Take home any of our exclusive gear by browsing our merch shelf or clicking the link in the video description. And while you're at it, take our quiz to find out how you can earn extra cash online doing what you do best. Awesome, right? Frequent flyers, listen up, because we've got more aviation wonders just for you. Don't miss our roundup of the 10 secrets flight attendants never tell passengers. Till then, stay adventurous, Factnatics, and see you in the next video.